Welcome back to another episode of I Wish They Knew, a show where we share big ideas that deserve more attention in about the time it takes to enjoy a cup of coffee. I'm Joe Hirsch. Today's wish comes from Nataly Kogan. Nataly is a globally recognized expert in transformation and leadership. She's an international keynote speaker, an artist, a former tech CEO, and the best-selling author of 3 books. Her work has appeared all across the popular press, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, and Forbes, among many, many other outlets. And in case you can't tell, she really loves the color yellow. Nataly, welcome to the show.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thanks so much, Joe, for having me on.
It's been a long time in the making. Thrilled we're talking today. Sorry, my yellow is just in dry cleaning. So.
It's all right. It's all right. I feel like mine is enough for both of us.
Comparing our two backgrounds, I could not see a greater study in contrasts. So what do you wish more people knew?
Yeah, what I wish more people knew is that no matter what their life circumstances are right now, and no matter what is going on in the world, that they always have this magic power at their disposal. And that power is the ability to choose their mindset. And my inspiration for this, I always mention this, as Viktor Frankl. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have read his amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning. I read the other day, Joe, I don't know if you saw this, that more than 10 million copies have been sold, but that underestimates by a lot by how many people have borrowed it from the library or friends. And in it, he tells a story of how he was in a concentration camp, which is conditions none of us can probably imagine. And that he made a choice that he not only would survive, but he would maintain his humanity, he would find the good, and he would find the meaning. And that, to me, I think is particularly relevant just for our times of a lot of turbulence and change, that you get to choose what you focus on. You get to choose what you pay attention to. You get to choose how you go through your everyday. And that is, I think, the most magic power that we all have.
Yeah, we always have a choice. And in that choice is our control.
100%.
Yeah. So in the face of these challenges and changes that always seem to be creeping just around the corner, there is that natural tendency to wait out the change and see how it all plays out. But you argue for a more deliberate approach. We call it reinventability, the decision to act our way through change and not just wait for it to happen to us. Tell us more about that approach and why you think it's a more helpful frame of reference for meeting the changes and challenges that are affecting us in our work and in our lives.
Well, it's a great question, Joe, and it connects exactly to what we were just talking about, control. So we know about ourselves as human beings that we thrive in life when we feel we have a sense of control. That makes sense, right? Our brain wants us to survive and wants us to be safe. And when we feel like we have a sense of control, even when things are challenging, we are more likely to thrive. And that's really the kernel for me, is change is challenging, right? Whenever we experience change, there's a lot of uncertainty. That's very, very difficult for the human brain because it doesn't know how to keep us safe, which is a very constricting, actually very out of control feeling. My invitation, and that's what it is, it's an invitation, is to actually recognize that change gives us an opportunity. That when things are changing, that means there are new possibilities opening up, new pathways we haven't considered. And so that's why I think a better approach is to actually look at change as a catalyst and to say, instead of just like making my way through this or, trying to make sure it doesn't happen to me or surviving it, I'm going to step into my agency. I'm going to exercise my choice and my control. And I'm going to look at how is this change giving me an opportunity to grow, to expand, to do more of the things that I want to do.
A change is a chance. It's also a choice. So take us through this framework, because I think it is very empowering, and it does put a premium on the human need for agency and empowerment. So put this thing into motion.
What I have found to be helpful is to have a process. And these are the actionable steps that you can take wherever you are in your journey of change and reinvention that help guide you. The first step of the framework is actually one that surprises people, because when we think of changing something in our lives or, our work, we start to look outside. Let me get a different job, move to a different city, whatever it is. But my first step is actually to invite you to look inside and to do what I call anchor in your zone of greatness. Your zone of greatness is the intersection of 3 things: what you love to do, what you are great at, what comes pretty easily, and where you want to have the impact that you want to have. that's when you consider the intersection of those things. That to me is the seed or the thread that you want to pull on. Oh, okay, these are the things I love to do. I'm great at. Here's where I want to have an impact. Then you can start to look at, well, how could I do that more? What are steps that follow that? So the first step is to actually look within ourselves versus trying to think of what do I change on the outside. The second step is to envision new possibilities. So we talk very briefly about how the brain, when it looks at things changing, it just looks for the negative, right? Because it's trying to protect us. So in this step, you are literally actively shifting your brain to not focus on the obstacles. Oh, this might not work. Oh, this is not something that's open to me, but to say, with things changing, what are new possibilities that I am excited to explore, and use the zone of greatness as the foundation for that, right? Just a super quick example. One of the leaders that I work with, she's been in sales enablement for years, doing great, like director level. But one of the things that she loves to do and is great at is public speaking. She's delivered a lot of trainings in the company. They're all well received. And so she went to her boss and had a conversation about, hey, I want to do more public speaking. I want to impact people outside the company. And now she's delivering workshops and keynotes outside of her immediate role. And so that's a great example of that. The third step is to challenge your limiting beliefs, because the reality, Joe, is the moment we consider doing something we haven't done before, however small, we're going to run into a belief of, what if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? What if this doesn't work out? It's very natural. We have to challenge these limiting beliefs. And my favorite story about this, super quick, is the hot dog eating championship that's held in Coney Island in New York every year. For decades, the record was 25 hot dogs eaten in 10 minutes, which I think is a lot, but that was the record. But for decades, it was consistent. And then this little Japanese man called Takeru Kobayashi comes in 2001. He eats 50. He literally doubles the record. But in all the interviews, the first thing he talks about is he chose to say not 25 is the limit, but how can I eat more than 25? So challenging our limiting beliefs is a core part of it. The fourth step of the framework, my favorite, is to act to learn. So this is where action comes in. And act to learn literally means you start to take action to explore this new direction, this new possibility, but not with a goal of, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to work out perfectly, but I'm going to take an action to learn as much as I can, right? And this is a real mindset shift that I think is so essential, is when you're doing something new in your life, you're not going to get it all right. There's going to be moves that you make, actions you take that don't work out. When you have that expectation from the beginning, you're just acting to learn, it allows you to explore. It allows you to expand without constant fear. And the fifth step is to experiment and evolve, to literally approach this process of your change and growth and reinvention as a process of prototyping. One of the things I've started to mention in my keynotes when I talk about this, because I learned about it recently, James Dyson, who invented the famous Dyson vacuum that is considered one of the most innovative household appliances of this century. Do you know how many prototypes he built? Can you guess, Joe?
Oh, I'm guessing at least 100.
Okay. 5,126.
My goodness.
5,127 is the Dyson vacuum that we know today. But he basically worked on it for 5 years, creating basically a prototype every day. And what he said was, and this is the essence of just approaching your reinvention as experimenting and evolving. He said, I had 5,126 failures, but I learned from each one of them. So those are the 5 steps. And I think that approaching it, recognizing that it begins within, we have to challenge some limiting beliefs we have, but mostly we have to take action to learn and evolve, is the core kind of essence of how I look at reinvention and changing within ourselves and then making changes in our lives.
Yeah. And what really comes across clearly in the framework is that we're not waiting for other people to save us or to swoop in and change for us. We're ultimately the ones who are responsible for the change, and we are the ones who are responsible for the choices.
And that's agency. What we're talking about ultimately is agency, is really stepping into our agency and saying what we were talking about at the beginning, that no matter what is going on, whatever is happening in the world or my life, I am going to step into my agency and I'm going to make choices, and I'm going to learn, and it's not all going to work, but I'm going to make active choices to do things that I care about, or to do things that I want, or to do things that are calling to me. And that agency is incredibly empowering. And also, as we were talking about before, that gives us a sense of control, which actually helps us to persevere through a lot of the challenges that change brings up.
Yeah. And I think when we do come head to head with those self-limiting beliefs that you mentioned and the frustrations of trying and failing and then
Mm,
trying and then failing again is this, I guess the important piece is to realize that you can't grow unless you're willing to let go, right?
mm,
To let go of those self-limiting beliefs, to let go of the fear of failure and to step more courageously, right? To dare yourself to
mhm.
actually take those actions. Easier said than done. So what have you seen that helps?
Easier said than done, but absolutely necessary, right? Our beliefs determine the choices that we make, right? So Takeru Kobayashi was not going to beat the record and eat 50 hot dogs unless he changed his belief that he could do it, right? And he had no evidence of this because literally hundreds of people tried and they couldn't do it. So it is challenging, but it is possible. And a couple super practical things I want to offer to the listeners. The first thing is to actually acknowledge what are the beliefs that I have. This is actually very important. A lot of our limiting beliefs are running on autopilot, like software in the background. We actually aren't even aware. So acknowledge, like bring them up, like what are the beliefs I have? The second is ask yourself if this belief is 100% true. So often, oh, this is too hard. I don't have enough experience. I'm not good enough. Well, look back through your life. This is one of my favorite exercises to do. Look back through your life when you did hard things, when you did things you didn't know how to do before, and how you made it happen, right? And this, our brain loves to forget the hard things that we've done a lot of things that had no certainty. So doing that reminds us that we can. And then the final thing is to really stand in kind of, I call it the inner truth cave, and ask yourself, is this the belief that I want to continue to have? And what is a better, more fueling, more constructive belief? And to actively choose that. And I'm not going to promise you this, there's no magic, there's no hacks. I don't believe in any of that. But actively reminding yourself that you have done hard things before, you've accomplished difficult things before, and actively choosing a more constructive belief is what opens up the ability to make different choices.
Yeah, you're almost acting your way into a new way of thinking.
Yes. And then to recognize that beliefs lead to actions and actions reinforce beliefs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that virtuous cycle.
It's an amazing cycle, but you are in charge of starting it, right? So Takeru Kobayashi first said, I believe that I could eat more than 25. Then he said, what are some things I could do to try to do that? So he experimented. And the more he did, it reinforced his belief that he could do it. The same is possible for all of us in whatever area of life we're considering. I'm imagining not many listeners are going to enter the Coney Island hot dog eating competition, but maybe.
Sometimes the change finds us, other times we find it. And you've spoken openly about your own life pivots, your own moments of reinvention. And I'm wondering if there was a specific feeling or event that caused you to go down that path of pursuing a new version of yourself. And I guess part two of that, how would someone know if now's the time to make that change?
So this is such a great question, Joe, because I hear this from a lot of people where like they're unsure. So here's my experience has been that it's not like one day, I wake up and like, okay, it is now time to reinvent myself. It doesn't happen like that. It actually starts with what I call the tug. Like you start to feel like it's like that tugging, like something isn't quite working. Like you're not quite, like maybe work that you used to enjoy, you're not feeling like you're enjoying anymore, or you're feeling like something is missing. Like it's something, it's tugging at you and it's uncomfortable. It is really uncomfortable because you don't know what the thing is. And the other piece of this is to not beat yourself up for not knowing exactly what you want to reinvent into, but to answer that call to be honest with yourself. So for me, it always starts with this kind of inner like tug. I'm not sure what it is. And what I would say to people is this is about listening to yourself, right? Because very often we get really locked into this is what I should be doing. This is my life. This is what I should be doing. And this is a daring, fearless invitation to when you start to feel like things you're doing aren't quite fitting, to actually not ignore that, to not try to power through, but to actually pay attention because and then it takes time to emerge. It's kind of, I've written a lot about the goo phase of reinvention. There's a goo phase, right? Before the caterpillar becomes a butterfly, literally disintegrates, becomes the goo. But in that goo, all the liminal cells that are going to make the butterfly are already there. But then the key is to start paying attention. And that's why the zone of greatness is so important, to just start paying attention of what lights you up, what is calling to you, right? I'm surrounded by my art for those of you watching. I didn't wake up one day and say, okay, today I'm going to paint. It is actually something I've wanted to do for a long time, but I really put that in the back burner because I'm like, what does a CEO and a tech executive or a speaker have to do with art? But it just kept tugging at me. And I started to do it slowly and quietly, and I didn't tell anyone. And so I'm encouraging everyone to not think that it's just, it announces itself like a drum band. It's a slow process that begins with that tug. But if you just honor it with some awareness and then pull that thread, right?
Mm.
Start to explore things. That's the way we reinvent. And it's kind of, that's why I don't like the word leap or drastic things. It's not like one day we're one person, the next day we're another. And that's actually just to say how I define reinvention. It's not about becoming someone new. It's actually becoming more of who we are,
Mm.
uncovering more of our dimensions, bringing more of those dimensions into our life. I am an artist, Joe, but I'm also still an entrepreneur, and I'm also an author, and I'm a speaker, and I'm a mom and a friend and all those things. So to me, it's less about becoming a brand new you and more about what is that tugging at you? That's a new dimension that maybe you haven't explored or you've quieted down. And that is the invitation to explore it.
Yeah. And when you do that, you bring all those factors and forces into living color.
100%. 100%. And I'm sure so many of your listeners are people who want to have a positive impact in life. And a lot of people that I work with or speak with, they say, what is my purpose? How do I create a positive impact? As my 21-year-old daughter would say, this is a hill I'm willing to die on. Our purpose in life is to uncover our unique dimensions and gifts and then work really hard to bring them out into the world. And to me, that is the point of reinventing ourselves, is to uncover more of those dimensions. That is how you create the positive impact you can have.
Yeah. To be more of the people that we already are and can
Yes,
become.
and can become.
Nataly Kogan, thanks for sharing your wish with us today.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I love our conversation.